The following is a program of the Santa Barbara County Education Office. To learn more, visit sbceo.org.
Hi, I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools, and I am so delighted to introduce to you all today our guest, Dianne Adam, who's an incredible community member who contributes in so many significant and meaningful ways, and has just been named the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Santa Barbara Foundation, amongst many other activities that you participate in. Dianne, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Susan. It's an honor to be here with a friend.
Oh, I'm so glad that you're here, and so glad that we can share with the audience today some of the countless ways that you contribute in the community. They are countless, but we're going to try to count a few.
All right.
All right. So before we go into all of the different organizations and entities and truly the impact that your leadership brings, I thought we would start at the beginning and talk about your childhood, background. I know you grew up, born and raised around these parts, so share with the audience.
Oh, great. Happy to. I was born and raised in Nipomo, which is just on the other side of the river here in southern San Luis Obispo County, rather. I was raised on what used to be a dairy, and so I lived with barns and cats and dogs and cattle at some points, and then my father went into just dry farming, and we just lived a real agrarian life there in Nipomo. I was schooled at St. Patrick's School in Arroyo Grande, and then I went on to Arroyo Grande High School. From there, even though my counselor didn't think I could do it, I left and went to Colorado State University, where I studied, originally I thought biology. The teacher, the counselor, the fella that you talk to there said, do you want to count squirrels? And I said, well, no, not really. And he suggested I go across the street to the microbiology department, and that's what my degree is in, microbiology, with an emphasis on, well, I have a certificate of clinical laboratory scientist is what they call me now.
Wow. So you studied to be a scientist, to get into that profession, and somehow there's a difference between what you're doing now and what you studied for. So trace for us that path, because you really went into medicine and science, I think, and found your way into really a world of philanthropy.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, even while I was in the hospital doing my work, I realized that I really enjoyed the people part of it. I loved being a phlebotomist. I loved talking to the doctors. I loved interacting with patients and calming them. But then when my children were coming along, I always say I was given the gift of being able to stay home. My husband is a farmer here in town, and he said, yeah, no, I'm not going to be the one staying home when the kids are sick. So I found myself home. From there, my two children in a stroller every Wednesday went to the Discovery Museum, and that's really the beginning of everything I've done over the last 23 years. My daughter is going to be.
Wow, can you believe that? So, and by the way, you talked about your husband being a farmer, your parents, you had a farm. What kind of farmer is your husband?
Oh, he's a local fella here from Santa Maria, 5th generation lettuce, broccoli, cauliflower, celery, the regular Santa Maria fare.
Love it. That's wonderful. So let's go to that Discovery Museum, because you talked about every Wednesday getting the stroller out and going to the museum. And perhaps little did you know, or maybe you completely knew, that only a few years later you would be really working towards a major capital campaign that the Discovery Museum has been able to now flourish under.
Right.
Can you talk about that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I was one of the only guests that visited the museum, and we coincided our visits with the local farmers market that happens on Wednesdays. The museum was only open on Wednesdays, and so that's when we went. I found myself just anxious to go every Wednesday because our kids had such a great time there. I got connected with the staff. At one point I asked them, would they be willing to help me put a concert on? I loved a local song master, and we put together a concert and it started with $100. I asked a couple of organizations in town for $100, and I put my own 100 in, and off it went. So then all of a sudden I'm a philanthropist, fundraiser, community organizer. From there they said, would you be a board member? And I said, why, sure, of course. I had such a passion for the place. I had no idea what I was getting into. And again, here we are 20 some years later.
And it is such a community gem. The Santa Maria Valley Discovery Museum, really, it's robust, it's full of children all the time, and your handprints are really part of each fabric of the wall space and the exhibits there, so we really appreciate that.
Well, I really didn't realize when I said, sure, I'll be part of the capital campaign, it was just my passion for the place that was driving me. And when you realize how much love you have for an organization and for a product even, the mission and the vision of the museum and the fact that we were moving to this bigger, more robust and fantastic and gigantic, and how are we going to do this space? It was the perfect kind of a challenge, and that's where I gathered a team, as we're going to talk about a little bit later, I believe, of also committed individuals, and it was through happenstance more than anything that I became the leader of that team. We met once a week to discuss who had done what and to download our successes and to cry over our failures, because after all, being in the philanthropy business, there's lots of no's that happen. They say for every one yes, you have 10 no's, and so that happened. So here we are, after a $5 million campaign.
And you use the word happenstance, but I would say I would not use that word with Dianne Adam, because I think you really make things happen. You really do, and your leadership and your style, and we will talk about a team. But one thing I want to say before teamwork is really your style and maybe approach and value about making connections. Anyone who talks to you in the first 5 minutes, you'll start, there'll be a gleam in your eye, and you'll say, well, I know someone and so-and-so, and you make connections based on needs in the community. So how does that work for you? What really drives that, that inner push for making connections?
Well, for me, it's creating a positive outcome with an opportunity between two people, between two organizations, between one or more of anything. Whether it's just with me or whether I can say, I know Susan who knows somebody else, and I pass the two of you off, and you live a happy life doing whatever it is I've connected you to do. I get great joy and satisfaction out of that people connection, and because I find it very easy and invigorating to listen to people and to understand what they need and where they're coming from and why they want to accomplish the things that they want to. I also have a great respect for the word no. A good leader also knows when to say, that's not my space. And so again, that's where my connector ability comes in, because there's been a few times where I've said, I'm not the right person for you. But I never say that without also offering a list or an idea for somebody who would be the right person for that job.
That's really great. And so now let's talk about the team, because you, although you're a powerhouse of your own, you really do bring a team mentality. You have other people who work alongside you and with you. And it sounds like that's a real value that you hold. Is that your approach to making connections? Is that your approach to leadership?
It sure is. I believe that everybody who wants to be on a team, everybody who wants to be led somehow, because there are those folks that want to be led. Not everybody can be a leader. So for someone like me, it's a great gift to have a team of people. Every person that comes wants to join my team or be part of my circle, I always invite them to tell me what their talent and skill is, what it is that's going to make them have a positive and successful experience in whatever whether it's a fundraiser or a birthday party or a capital campaign, it doesn't matter, or hiring a new ED or a CEO. There takes a special and certain kind of a team, and that's again where the no comes in. If I ask you to be part of my team and you tell me no, I'm thrilled with that. I want to have an honest answer and somebody who's really going to make the most of the experience that I offer them.
That's fantastic. I can tell that it's not just a one-way out. You're really really, it's a two-way street, and you're really so good at listening and really listening to what people are trying to share with you. So I think that brings us to why probably you were selected to chair the Board of Trustees for the Santa Barbara Foundation. Clearly you have all of this incredible experience, and the way you approach, how you approach different work that you have ahead of you makes you the perfect chairperson for that board.
Thanks for the compliment.
Yes, absolutely. So how did you get involved with let's start with just the
Sure.
first baseline. How did you get involved
Sure.
with the foundation?
Well, I was invited to be part of the Catherine Harvey Fellows program back in the early 2000s. I had no idea what a foundation was. I had no idea what a community foundation was. I was just a new mom, and my kids were just kind of getting ready to go to school, and so I had a little extra time on my hands, and so somebody said, why don't you apply for this? And I did, and I was amazed at the staff, the board, the interactions, the opportunities that was afforded to me through that leadership program. Again, I didn't know anything really about philanthropy, and it kind of coincided with my work at the Discovery Museum, so I was learning things at the foundation and putting them into action at the museum. I found that every meeting I was invited to, every committee assignment, every site visit, there used to be site visits, every grant review was an opportunity to learn something about another organization, about other people, about needs in our community, about opportunities in our community. So now, fast forward through a program called the Affiliates. I was part of the affiliate program in Santa Maria and invited to be the chairperson of that. And from there, they invited me to be a trustee. This is my 6th year as a trustee, and now that we've opened our North County headquarters, we're truly a larger footprint, a truly county-wide organization, and I feel that my experience here in Santa Maria and in the North County East and West, I tell everybody too, is makes me sort of, I believe, the right person at the right time for this organization to be in this leadership
I
role.
couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. You're a perfect person for it right now. And it's exciting to hear about the whole Santa Barbara County footprint, as you say. So we heard a little bit about how you learned about the foundation and your involvement. Tell us now about what the foundation's purpose is and its mission.
Great. Well, we're creating a new mission. We've reinvigorated our commitment to all of the communities in Santa Barbara County. We've gone about creating a new mission statement and some 5-year goals, which will be announced later this year. But we really believe that everybody can do good, but we can do better together. And the foundation is leading and convening and seeding ideas and inviting people in, whether you're a nonprofit organization, a donor, a community member, somebody who has a need for philanthropy. And philanthropy means all of those things. Doing, getting, being, serving, it's all philanthropy. And that's the hub where the Santa Barbara Foundation serves as a nexus for all of that sort of activity.
How exciting, not only the mission that it has had, but that it's having a new lens, basically, on the whole Santa Barbara County, east and west, north and south. Very, very good. So when we started this interview, I said there were, and I truly believe there are countless ways that you really have contributed to the community, and I said, well, let's go through a few. So one of them has to do with, we've already talked about the Discovery Museum. Another one, this incredible position that you're in for the Santa Barbara Foundation. We talked about Catherine Harvey Fellows a little bit. Let's talk about a few more. So I'll name a few. One is the Arts Fund for Santa Barbara. You did some incredible work with the Arts Fund. Can you share with the audience what it was? And
that's one of my proudest moments, actually.
Fantastic.
And it's kind of a long story,
so let's hear
I'll
it.
try to cut it a little short. I was invited to be part of a meeting of the California Education Arts. I'm not sure even who all was on the stage at the Santa Barbara Bowl. I got to eat breakfast on the stage of the Santa Barbara Bowl. I thought that was good enough. When I got introduced to somebody from the Arts Fund who said, well, you know, we have a mentorship program and we really need to kick that into business in the North County. And that individual revealed to me that she had never been to the North County. Well, for someone like me, that's a fantastic challenge. And I knew that I was the right person at the right time in the right place to make it happen, because I said to her on the spot, it can happen. I know all the art teachers in town. You can do it at the Discovery Museum, and we'll involve the city, and I don't know what all I said, but I created a field trip for the arts. I invited her sidekick, Kathy Seamus from the Santa Barbara Foundation. Hannah Rubalcaba at the time was in the ED of the Orchid Children's Art Foundation. And we loaded everybody in a van, and I expanded the map of Santa Maria Valley, which is large.
Yes.
We
yes.
got in the car, we went around Hancock. I pointed out Hancock College. We went out to Pioneer Valley High School. We went down Donovan Road and pointed out Fair Lawn and the Boys and Girls Clubs, all the way to Guadalupe. Visited the Dune Center, the Cultural Center, out along Highway 1, back around Clark Avenue, pointed out St. Joseph High School, Rigetti High School, and on back to the Discovery Museum meeting room where I had invited the teachers, the Parks and Rec, the art folks from Hancock College, the E&M Hassett Foundation, Kathy, myself, we were all there for lunch.
Wow.
And let's get this going. And I said, it can happen here. And then one short year later, our good friend John Hood, who was an art teacher and taking a sabbatical from Hancock, and he graciously used his sabbatical to do this mentorship program.
Wow.
Every high school in the valley was represented except for one, and they're all to be seen on the end of the Discovery Museum in a beautiful mural. Yeah.
Wow. That is a great story. And you know what, Diane, it really shows in that one story all of those strengths that we discussed about your leadership, truly connecting people, really having a vision for how teams work together. And the reason you're doing it is to make something better.
Right.
And so not only do we appreciate the work of everybody who put in what they did and the beautiful mural that exists, but your work and leadership too. That's really exciting.
The North County mentorship continues.
Oh,
to this
fantastic.
day. One of the people at the lunch was somebody who was able to fund the second go
That's
around,
exciting.
and now we're still rolling. So,
well, you said fund, so here's another one of the countless,
Uh-oh.
but the counting is Women's Fund of Northern Santa Barbara County.
Right.
And tell us what that committee does, or the group does, and in your involvement in that.
okay, I'm just done with chairmanship of the membership committee.
Okay.
The Women's Fund of Northern Santa Barbara County is a giving circle, plain and simple. Ladies are invited to participate by writing a check annually, as little as $125, and I like to say the sky's the limit on the other end. On our form it says $1,000, but let's not stop there. If you have more than that, that's great. We pool our resources. There's a research committee that goes about discussing and discovering nonprofit organizations within a field of interest that changes every year. They have research that goes on, asking those folks to apply. Interviews happen, and then the membership is invited to vote on which organizations they'd like their funds to go to.
Wow.
So last year, for instance, our focus was art and music. So we funded PCPA, education outreach. We funded the E&M Hassett trailer for a project, and then we also funded the Santa Maria Symphony to do their youth outreach program.
Incredible. Well, I want to say thank you for,
Sure.
on behalf of all the students and children in the schools. What a benefit to have you working with the teams
Yep.
on these committees.
Yep.
Okay, another one, and maybe this will be our final one for today. But the Scholarship Foundation of Santa Barbara County.
Yep.
Yes, and you're very involved with the Scholarship Foundation, and have been.
Yep.
Can you talk about that organization and your involvement?
Absolutely. I have many different touches on that
Okay.
on that organization, and it started with my being invited to be an interviewer. And I said, yes, of course, I love kids. I want to interview them. I want them to see their dreams come true.
Yes.
So I've interviewed in all of the North County schools over the years. I knew the executive director, Colette Hadley, who volunteered her time to help me at the Discovery Museum when we were first starting the revitalization. I'm good friends with Raisa Smarl, their fund development director. Those are the two people who know me there. The person who signs up folks for the interviews doesn't know me, and I got by happenstance, placed at San Marcos High School last year. And that was such a fantastic experience for me because knowing my community here in Santa Maria, knowing the students at Rigetti, Santa Maria, Pioneer Valley, I went to San Marcos High School in Santa Barbara, and the kids are all the same. They have the same hopes, the same dreams, the same challenges, the same expectations, the same nerves, all of it. And it was just gave me such a thrill and a sort of a renewed faith.
Yeah.
And it's just a delight to know that we're all kind of the same.
So when you're advocating for Santa Barbara County, you
Right.
can really believe that these are the same needs throughout the county.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's wonderful. We've talked a lot about the philanthropic work that you do. It's a lot of leadership and hard work that you put forth, and clearly the community is benefiting from it. How do you benefit from the philanthropy work that you do? In other words, what is the best part of it for you?
Oh my gosh, the best part of it for me is the people and the conversations and the listening and the learning and the connecting that I get to do as a result of that, because folks often tell me, oh, I consider you my mentor. I love that you were able to sit me down and push me forward here or tell me to go a different direction. The people are what really drive me. It's not about money, it's not about fame, it's not about any individual organization. It's just about the people who do all the good work in our community, whether it's a teacher who's getting paid for their job or it's somebody like me who gets paid with heart song.
Intrinsic reward in your heart. Yes, absolutely. Well, thanks, Diane, for that. You mentioned just now, you talked about someone saying, mentoring, you know, oh, this is what I've learned from you. And I know that you mentor many people, even if you don't know you're mentoring people, you are, and coaching them. But if you were being explicit around coaching someone who's really trying to do good for the community, are there certain approaches that you have in terms of that coaching or mentorship, something that you really want to impart for them?
Well, I think it really still goes back to the listening, asking pointed questions, not being afraid to give sort of a little hard truth if that's necessary. I've always, or I have a quote in my office that says, harsh reality is better than false hope. You know, so letting people know you might be running in the different direction than you should be, or have you thought about this other direction? I'm hearing you say that, you know, so and such. And so for me, it's all about the listening. If people ask me for advice, I'm going to give them what I consider to be my best advice. It's not always what people want to hear, but I've often had people come back and say, you know, that was really rough, but thank you, because that afforded me this other door of opportunity that I went through, and look at what I'm doing now. So I've been involved with the ambassador, or the mentorship program at Allen Hancock College, and there's for the last 2 years, and I've always been invited to mentor a particular person who needed my skill. The first one was, they said, we have a non-traditional student that we'd like to match you with. To me, that's awesome, because I get to do something different, and I get to understand what makes this lady non-traditional. And this year I have a beautiful, bright, eloquent, well-spoken young lady who's going to Harvard tomorrow to give a presentation.
Wow.
So
that's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. And in the mentorship at Allen Hancock College, is that a mentorship for students?
Yes.
Yeah.
It matches students with community members, whether they be industry or philanthropy or leadership or, you know, what have you. It depends on what the student is looking for. Then they go about trying to find the right person to match them with.
It sounds like there's a need, oftentimes a need for someone to be honest, but kind, and truthful and warm. So they'll call Diane Adam. And they'll say, we need you for this particular purpose.
Sure.
Yeah. And you talked a lot about mentorship, but you also talked about leadership. And it's really, in many ways, probably very similar. But when you think about leadership skills that you have or that you admire in others, are there a few that you wouldn't mind sharing that you think, yes, this is a part of the recipe for leadership success?
I would say I kind of have three mottos in life. One is say yes whenever possible. If you've got the time, talent, and or treasure, the capacity. So say yes. I always say ears open, mouth shut. There's nobody, the old. There's an old cowboy saying, "I never miss an opportunity to shut up." And then you can learn something from everybody you meet. So leadership, when I'm in a group, I'm running a meeting, I like to look around the room and make sure, has everybody been heard? And even in my first meeting at the Santa Barbara Foundation last month, I said that out loud. And then I got a comment from somebody afterwards. I did it because I knew it was the right thing to do, but I heard from somebody, I've never heard that happen before, and thank you for that. So I think allowing the space for people to offer themselves and their opinions and their likes and their dislikes and their attitudes, it all has value. Some of it is challenging sometimes, and challenges are good. I think that conflict, a little bit, is good because it gets people jazzed up and thinking and communicating, and arguing is not really the right word, but respectfully
Debating.
going back and forth. And I really honor that, people's voices.
That's great. I'm thinking back to what you said about your college choices in terms of what you thought you would be in terms of your profession in the medical field and where you are today. And in so many of the different aspects of your work that you've done, you've been a leader. And yet you didn't go to school to be, a leader. In other words, that wasn't your major. But you really have learned and grown, and you've shifted, and you've, just kept growing yourself, in terms of leadership. Would you say that's through the experiences that you've had, or were there particular mentors for you along the way that helped shape your leadership style?
I think I would have to say my folks, really, first and foremost, because my mother was a leader in the community with regard to helping. One big project that she did was help site selection for the Nipomo High School. And that was a long and arduous process, and she had to argue with neighbors and agriculturalists and the school board and the people who had the money and people who didn't have the money, and it was for me a very big learning, just to observe that. My dad was always somebody who welcomed everybody in. Come on in and have a seat, and let's have a chatter. What's wrong? You look like you got something wrong. What can we do about that? So I would say that, and then back further, my grandfather was a very philanthropic fella, and in his retirement from being a dairyman, his job was to take care of all the little old ladies and their checks, and he went to their homes, did house calls, and picked up their checks to take to the savings and loan, and he made everybody feel good and wanted and loved, and that experience of giving when you can, whether it be mostly our time and our talent, because we really didn't have a whole lot of treasure in the day. It was just a great thing to see. And the Sisters of Mercy at St. Patrick's School, we had charisms. They're called Charisms of Mercy, and it was about giving and lending a hand and being available for your neighbor and giving of yourself, or giving something that's really you can't afford to give, but that person needs it a little bit more than you do. So.
Well, thank you. Just a minute ago, you said the word treasure, and I think that you really are a community treasure, Diane. Truly, I mean, the energy, the time, the resources, the focus, the thoughts that you provide to this community, Santa Barbara County. We are so fortunate to have your leadership here, and the contributions you make are really impactful for not only our children, but truly the community, and you help make this a better place. So I just want to say thank you for being our guest today, but thank you for what you do.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Susan Salcido, Santa Barbara County Superintendent of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of Local Leaders.